Welcome to Navigating Your Retirement with our host, Travis Chance. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore. And Travis, I'm excited about the show you have for our listeners and viewers out there today. We're talking about retirement questions that keep people up at night. My retirement plans, once in a while, I used to lay awake wondering. Now I don't, because I have a plan in place, working with a financial professional, and that's what you do. That's how you help people. So I'm excited to jump into this one. But first, how's everything going? How's the fam?
Everything's going to status quo, Tony.
Okay. So
I
still
won't.
problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I won't go too far into that this
No.
morning. We don't want to hijack the show with my continued contractor woes.
Yeah, you give me a call. I'm not going to lay awake night or hold my breath, but you give me a call when all the contracting work is done on your house. I'll look for that text from you. Hey, Tony, it's finally done. And I hope that I'm still around to experience
Yeah,
it.
I
I would
do
like to come
too.
out and see the finished product
I
before I pass from this.
I would love for that to be the case as well, Tony. Love it.
Oh
Yeah,
man, I don't know. I think we've been talking about this as long as we've been
20
doing
months.
a show.
So, well, you and I actually, it's funny because you and I, we started our podcast when I bought this thing.
Yes.
When I bought my house in
Yeah.
2017, you and I
Yes.
started in January of 18. And that's when I started the renovation process. And
About
yes,
8 years, 7, 8 years ago.
I have been in 9 years of hell and purgatory. Yeah, it is absolutely
Oh,
incredible.
unbelievable.
My wife used to kid me because some of the things as a recovering politician, we talked about politicians a little before the
Oh,
show
yeah.
started. And as a recovering politician, some of the stuff that I saw in politics, my wife used to always joke and say, you should write a book. Between my life in politics and my life with contractors, I really do think I need to write some short stories. It is absolutely maddening. But you know what? My wife, I will give her credit. She actually gave me a great compliment this morning because she said, honey, I don't understand why people cannot just do what they say and mean what they say and actually get it done. She said, because if they ran their crews like you serve your clients, there wouldn't be any issues. And that is
No.
100% accurate. So
Yeah.
I try to use them as good motivation to be the exact opposite of the service I'm getting. So
Yes, exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Well, and you do. You love working for your clients and people you work with. They're like family, and you like to take care of people. So I know how frustrating it is when other people don't run their businesses that way.
But
And that,
on another note, it is kind of funny. I do have clients and actually prospective clients that once they become clients, they tell me stories about how much they got a chuckle out of listening to some of my stories about this stuff. So
oh yeah.
I'm glad I can provide some levity on the topic because I'm probably saying what you're thinking out there.
Yeah. Well, there was this movie. I mean, it wasn't the greatest Tom Hanks movie, but he was
Oh,
in
the
a
money
movie
pit.
called The
Yeah,
Money Pit. Yeah.
hey, I swear to God, that has got to be required viewing before you get your contractor's license is 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. It's got to be 2 weeks. How much is that going to cost? I don't know. When you coming back? I don't know. 2 weeks. It is
Yeah.
absolutely 100% accurate.
Hilarious.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I just remember the scene where the bathtub falls through the floor. That's one of
Haven't
my
had
favorite.
that. Haven't had that. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah,
That
haven't
was,
had
and they're
that.
both, and the shot of them both looking through the hole in the
Mhm.
floor at their house that they just sunk all this
Yeah,
money
yeah,
into.
no, haven't
Yeah.
had that yet,
Yeah.
but yeah,
It's a
it's been
lost and forgotten Tom Hanks classic. You got to watch The
it
Money
is,
Pit.
and,
Yeah.
what was the lady's name? She
I
was on
forget.
Cheers.
Yeah.
I remember her name.
Diane.
N
No. She played Diane on
She
the
was in
series.
she was a really popular, what was her name?
Shelley.
Shelley.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shelley Winters.
Yes, Shelley Winters.
Yeah, she was a really popular actress in the early 80s, but
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
we digress. But hey, also, since you mentioned that movie, and you and I are really really big movie guys,
Yeah.
do you know what the tie-in between Die Hard and Money Pit is?
No.
Her ex-husband was the
Hans
head
Gruber.
killer for Hans Gruber,
Hans Gruber.
the blonde-headed guy.
Oh yeah.
Remember?
Oh yeah.
That was her
Yeah.
ex-husband, was the guy that Bruce Willis had the big fight scene with.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was Hans Gruber's right hand.
Yeah, the right-hand guy.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the big Scandinavian
6
Norwegian
degrees of
looking.
separation between Money Pit and Die Hard.
Oh,
What
that's
can you
awesome.
not learn on this show?
Yeah, right there. Wow. I didn't even know that one. Well, Travis, thanks for the movie trivia. That's awesome. At least we're trying to get you to laugh about your situation a little bit.
Well, if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Well, and there's the old saying in comedy, and it works. Tragedy plus time equals comedy. So you'll look back on this whole thing and laugh someday. But yeah,
whatever you say, my friend.
All right. Well, retirement questions that keep people up at night. What's the first one you want to hit?
You know, Tony, it's interesting. Most people think, when they think retirement stress, they think it's always about money, and I don't think that's the case. You know, we hear, or you Google, or you see these shows on TV, you read the articles on Market Watch or Barron's or Think Advisor or Financial, wherever you get your information. And it's always talking about like not having enough, or what do you do if markets crash? What do you do if you potentially get to the point of maybe running out of money? But most of the time, questions, they're not that direct. They're not that focused on those topics. It's usually more quiet, and it's usually questions that they're thinking, and they don't say them out loud. That's what we're going to talk about today, is some of the questions that really drive decision making by retirees, and sometimes drive them to make mistakes because they don't voice their concerns out loud, and sometimes they fester, they manifest, and they cause people to do things that maybe they shouldn't. That's also, shameless plug, but that's also one of the reasons I really enjoy our format in our class that we teach, which we're actually doing another one this evening. And we give the audience an opportunity to ask some of these questions, because as I heard many times in school, and you probably heard as well, the only dumb question is the one you don't ask.
Yep.
If you don't get an answer to your question, I hate to say this, but that's kind of your fault. I mean, you need to be asking that question. You need to be sure of what you're doing, because I can assure you, even in a group setting, you might feel like, oh, that's silly, or maybe I shouldn't say it. There's someone in the group probably thinking exactly what you're thinking. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning, are some of the questions that are probably right under the surface, festering, but maybe don't get asked.
Yeah.
And one of the first questions I want to start with is, a lot of people that I speak with, they come in and they ask me to give them a second opinion on their portfolio. And they say, should I be more conservative? Am I not supposed to be more conservative now that I've gotten through retirement? And honestly, sometimes that can be a mistake.
Sure.
I see it all the time.
You mean
Tony.
when they're just getting ready, or just
like say they were going to retire at 65, and all of a sudden at 63 or 64, they go to 80% fixed income and cash, or they just take their foot off of the pedal, when in actuality, I'm certainly not saying don't do what's in your risk tolerance, right? I mean, if that's
everybody's situation,
if that's what your risk tolerance dictates, by all means.
Yeah, but for a lot of people, if they depending on what resources they have and money they have, they still have. Most people are living at least 20 years in retirement, so that's a long time horizon. You should still have a lot of growth, right?
You could potentially have as long of a retirement career as you had a working career.
Right.
That is huge,
It's a
right?
third to a half now for a
Mhm.
lot of people. Yeah.
So sometimes playing it safe and reducing risk is actually just creating more risk called tail risk in the end.
Sure.
And sometimes it's the fear of market loss, right? It's we just like I've been describing kind of Murphy's law and my contractor woes. You're always waiting on the next shoe to drop, right? The next
Yeah.
phone call.
Yeah.
And some people think, okay, the market's been really good for the last 5-10 years. It's due for a correction. It's got to happen,
Yep.
and let's face it, probably 2-3 weeks ago, a lot of people were probably a lot more concerned when they got their statements because they're like, oh my gosh, March was terrible. Well, April's been really good, right? I mean, since we started to look like we were going to get a resolution to the Iranian conflict, you've seen the markets recover pretty stoutly. So, I mean, sometimes it's just this underlying fear that causes us to make these kinds of mistakes. But a 25 to 30 year retirement, that equation, it may need to be changed a bit, but it certainly doesn't need to be flipped on its axis or turned over, so to speak. It's not like you're really doing yourself a service, because at the end of the day, it's not just the risk of losing money. If you do what you may feel is the right thing to do, which is take risk off the table, what you may be doing is risking your purchasing power over time,
Hmm.
because your portfolio going to a really conservative portfolio, let's face it, if all you did was invest in CDs, fixed income cash over the last 5 to 10 years, you have been massively gobbled up by inflation. That's not a great way to enter retirement. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand it may have been a much smoother ride, but you probably lost a lot of ground, even though your portfolio may not have had these real violent swings. You probably lost a lot of the purchasing power that you may have been able to capture long term. Right. So it's not just the risk of losing money, folks. It's being more conservative at the beginning of retirement could actually lead to a disadvantage. Now, that being said, what are some of the things you may want to do? Well, one of the things that we talk about quite often is if you have let's say a bucket of money, and for instance, I have clients all the time that are like, you know what, don't really have a huge legacy goal, and Social Security is going to cover, say, 70% of my needs, and they say, okay, I'm going to take 30%, carve it out, create an income stream, and then that way they don't have to worry about what the market does short term. I
Right.
mean, it eliminates that need for that immediate capital, because you've already got your income in place.
And
Or
that's huge because that way you can deal with market volatility.
yes,
It
yes,
doesn't, when the markets are like they have been, where it's like, wow, is it up today? Is it down today? Big swings in the market. You don't have to worry about it. You can sleep
it
well at
takes
night.
that emotional roller
Yeah,
coaster
that's
out of it.
huge.
And that leads to other uncertainty, right? Because one of the things I see quite often that correlates with that question is, not only should I get more conservative, closer to retirement, but Tony, people get into retirement and it feels uncertain. It's like,
Mhm.
why does this not feel comfortable, right? I thought I had enough. I thought we saved enough, but something's out there just lingering, and it's really just making me feel uneasy.
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter how much you have. It doesn't matter if you have 200,000. I've seen cases where people have 2 million or 3 million and they still feel uncomfortable.
Right.
It's because that loss of paycheck, it actually equates to loss of structure. It takes them out of their comfort zone,
Yep.
because chances are your retirement portfolio is going to correlate to what your income was. I mean, if you made 100,000, not always, but if you made 100,000, probably could be 1 million. I mean, could be 200,000. I mean, it depends
Right.
on life, etc. But it doesn't matter. It's when you're working, you're able to put money away. You're able to ride these periods out, and you still have that mailbox paycheck money, so to speak, right? You go to work,
Right.
you execute your job, you get paid. But whenever you don't, And now all of a sudden you wake up and it's like, okay, I'm not going to work and I've still got to have that same paycheck coming in. There's some emotions there that start brewing that we really weren't prepared for in a lot of cases. Okay. Because you're now shifting from accumulation over to decumulation. You're starting to ask your portfolio to produce what you were doing for it in the previous 20, 30 years. That's a shift that gives a lot of people agita, Tony. It's
Yeah.
it's not something that we a lot of times think about or envision until we get into the moment. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, like what do we do? Right. And that's where I think, like, when your working money is coming in regularly, it just makes you feel that much. It's almost like a warm blanket of security that
Yes.
now you don't have. And all of a sudden you get that chill, you get that discomfort. And sometimes uncertainty in retirement, it's not always about numbers. Sometimes it's about control. It's about not being able to pull that over you in times where markets get volatile or go up and down. Because let's face it, they're always going to go up and down. Right? You just said it. If you were entering into January, you probably were feeling pretty good. Probably still should be feeling pretty good, but January markets were up a couple percent. S&P, you had small and mid caps, you had all the other sectors starting to outperform, and then all of a sudden it felt like the rug got pulled out because the Iranian conflict started, international started to fall because the dollar got stronger. Then you had U.S. stocks, S&P was down 8 to 9%, peak to trough. I mean, it started to give you that little nagging feeling again. And that's certainly not something we want to do. And how do we overcome that, folks? How we overcome that is what Tony said in the beginning of the show. It's having a plan to bridge the gap in times of uncertainty, because we're never going to be able to prepare for everything. Because I don't know about you, but 5 years ago, if you'd have said, hey, or 7 years ago, we're going to go into a pandemic and world's going to be shut down for almost 2 years,
No one
I'd
knows.
have been like, you're crazy. If
Yeah.
you'd have told me 3 years ago that we were going to go into, a war with Iran starting in 2026, and there was going to be, realistically, not really an end in sight, I'd have been like, they've been talking about that for 46 years. It may not come to pass, but you don't know.
Yeah, these what I call black swan events.
Yeah,
They
they
happen.
pop
They
up.
happen.
Yeah.
2008, the pandemic in 2020, 2019, 2022, we had the down year, the war with Iran. These things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to once in a while. It's just, do you have a plan in place that can deal with that? It's the thing is, we hope for the best, but we should plan for the worst, right?
I tell and had this conversation multiple times yesterday. Had a client come in, prospective client. They came in and basically it was very eerie, because exactly what I'm describing this morning is pretty much a lot of that conversation. Because their risk tolerance, they were entering into retirement, but their risk tolerance was still kind of a balance in the middle of the road, but their investments were very, very conservative. And a
Yeah.
lot of it was because they were uncertain, they were unsure, they
Yeah.
had questions that they could not answer. And sometimes, and you can use the ostrich, the turtle, whatever what you want to use, but sometimes it's easier to pull back in our shell or stick our head in the sand like an ostrich than it is to actually address them. And thank God that they actually did, because I think that they were going to be victim of what the next question is without knowing it. And that is, how do you know if you're spending too much, not enough, or just right? And this is why I correlate this to that conversation, is because the first thing that was asked is, how much do you think this portfolio can produce in income?
Mhm.
And they were only literally living off of about 20% of its capacity. Now, that's great that they could do that, but they were foregoing a lot of comforts and a lot of travel and a lot of things that they could have been doing.
They need permission to spend.
Correct. They were
Permission
very
to spend.
unsure on
Yeah.
what to do. Therefore, the easiest thing is stay in this defensive mode and don't spend any money.
You
Well,
gotta live. Yeah.
folks, I am not the advocate for you if you think that retirement should be just retiring and living and sitting in a recliner and just watching Game Show Network all day. That's not living, right? I mean,
No, it is.
there's a whole big world out there that you need to go and see, because
Yeah. I don't care how
we
much you love game shows.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
not
I
gonna
mean, big
you're not
money,
gonna
no
make it
whammies. I
very
get it.
long. You're
I
gonna be
get it.
miserable.
Yep. One of my favorite shows as a kid was watching with my grandparents. Big money, no whammy. But
Big money, no whammy.
but it's not going to fulfill you the way that you could, and that
Sure.
is one of the most common struggles in retirement, Tony. Is we let fear drive our underspending instead of actually having the confidence to spend the level that we could, right? Because let's say, for instance, and I'll give you a great example. One of my favorite conversations I've ever had was with the retiree couple that came in, and the spouse, she said, all I want to do, and I don't know if we can do it, but you're going to have to tell me and give us permission, is I want to take the kids and all my grandkids to Alaska, and I want to pay for it, and I want us to go and have a great time and make some memories.
Mm.
And Tony, that was one of my favorite follow-up meetings, because I was able to basically show her how to do that and
That's
do that
awesome.
confidently.
Yeah, that's great.
But the problem is you get so many retirees that they don't ask that question. And it took a lot of courage to ask that question, but they don't ask that question, and they end up not doing the things or spending the money that they could. And fear drives them into their shell or into their hole. And sometimes a lot of times, most retirees don't need a stricter budget. They need confidence in their spending. And that's really what I try to preach, is having an income plan. It's not necessarily trying to restrict you to a certain amount of money. It's giving you permission to know that the dollars you spend, you're able to produce them, and you're not going to drive your portfolio into the ground and you into uncharted territory either, right? I mean, I can't think of a worse fate than running out of money before you run out of breath. But sometimes we take that fear too far.
Yep.
And that leads us to our last question that we tend to get, or that I think retirees are asking under the surface, is should we do this? And I don't want to regret it, but I don't want to regret doing it, and it puts us in a bad position. So what are you not doing out of fear of regret? Because a lot of times we see where people will forego, like I said, those comforts from either being too conservative or not wanting to do the spending, and a lot of times, sometimes they even miss opportunity out of fear of doing things like paying taxes or Roth conversion. We've talked about that many times. And it's like, oh no, I don't want to do that, because I might spend more of my cash on paying those taxes. And what if I have an emergency? They've been probably planning for the same set of tires for the last 3 years, right? I mean, it's like you think that next shoe's about to drop, but it's really not. It's not as much of an imminent threat as you might think.
Right.
But the one thing I can tell you is this is a threat to you and to your retirement, is regret. Because I've never seen a client, Tony, regret doing something with their kids, taking that trip with their spouse, or having that adventure or that trip that they've been putting off, because they were sacrificing, they were working, they were putting money away, they were doing the right things. And now that they can, doing that actually gives them a sense of fulfillment that's very hard to describe. But the one thing that everybody, I hope this is going to resonate: the healthiest years when you first retire, and they're usually the most active, if you don't use them properly, it's just like not spending assets. If you don't use those years properly, you're not going to get them back.
Right.
You can't.
Right.
I mean, I hate to say this, but it's the truth. We're a shelf life creature, right? We have a shelf life. our joints, our organs, our bodies. I mean, you have your years of being healthy, but if you don't take advantage of them, then they're going to lead to regret. And
Yeah.
that's the one thing I would encourage you not to do is don't leave it on the table, right? I mean, I'm not saying, go and do something irresponsible, but within reason, I think not enjoying that time is going to be something that's going to haunt you. And that is not what we want in retirement. We want you to be healthy, happy, and make sure that you are doing the things that make you happy and bring you fulfillment.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Well, I love it. We've covered a lot. Not being too conservative, making sure you're making the right money moves, having the confidence, and really where a lot of this comes from is removing some of the emotion from it
The
and
uncertainty.
getting a plan in place. And how do you do that? You pick up the phone, you call Travis Chance, and I think that's great. Navigating your retirement, pick up the phone. That number is 877-269-0839. And Travis, you're offering a no charge, no obligation consultation, correct?
Tony, we do not charge to give a second opinion. That is something I think so many people need, but they feel like if they do get a second opinion, okay, what's that going to cost me? And that is not something that we charge for. Having a conversation is important because you need to be able to voice those concerns. Because folks, retirement isn't just about having a plan. It's about having clarity around the decisions you make inside of that plan. It's all the little things that come together that create the plan that you need. So, folks, if you're out there, that's something that's been bugging you. Yes, usually the quiet questions are the most important, but ones that get very seldom asked. The only way to get confidence is to start today. You can start your New Year's resolutions in spring. There's spring cleaning. There's nothing saying you can't go ahead and do that today.
Sure.
Give us a call, 877-269-0839. Or, as I said, visit our website, chancefinancialgroup.com. Get some more information on our courses and hopefully change the course of your retirement plan today.
All right. Well, thanks for that, Travis. And listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of Navigating Your Retirement with our host, Travis Chance.